This $20 ATM scam is stealing debit cards and wiping out bank accounts in minutes.
Altogether, they got $5,980.
My money is gone and I had just gotten paid. And I'm a teacher. I don't make a lot of money.
I mean, like, I'm looking over my shoulder everywhere I go. It just is horrible.
This has to stop. How many other people is this happening to?
And victims are losing thousands at local grocery stores, and the banks aren't giving their money back. Police are calling it a distraction scam epidemic, and it's happening in broad daylight too. It starts with someone handing you a $20 bill and then saying you dropped it. Now it seems harmless, right? But within minutes, your debit card is compromised and your entire bank account is empty. And banks like Chase are refusing to give the money back to victims. And the worst part is these scammers are now linked to international crime rings operating in multiple states in the US. Check out this first victim who lost almost $6,000 in just minutes. So it happened outside of an Albertsons in Reseda, California. And it was actually a sunny afternoon, just another quick trip to the store for Irvin Nelson, who had no idea he was being watched. As he walked toward his car, a man and a woman approached him holding a $20 bill. "This is yours," the woman said kindly. They said, "I found it on the ground." And they insisted that he must have dropped it. It actually seemed like an honest mistake, something that could have happened to anyone. But what Irvin didn't know was that this was a well-practiced distraction scam, and he had just become their next target. What he didn't notice during the encounter was how closely they were invading his personal space. In the middle of this seemingly generous gesture, they managed to steal his debit card without him ever feeling it. And within minutes, they would use it to wipe out nearly $6,000 from his and his wife's joint bank accounts. And then later that day, Irvin's heart sank because his debit card was missing. So within hours, it took him hours, he actually discovered the horrifying truth. He noticed that $5,980 had been withdrawn from multiple Chase Bank branches using both ATMs and in-person teller transactions. And the scammers were fast. They hit accounts aggressively, knowing that they only had a limited window before the cards were frozen. And you know what? When Irvin and his wife contacted Chase Bank, they expected the bank to, investigate, pull branch security footage and help them recover the stolen funds. But instead, they were met with a cold, generic response. Something like, transactions were processed using the correct PIN number, therefore they are considered authorized. And then Irvin even pointed out that Chase's own policy states that any withdrawal over $5,000 should require a photo ID, especially when done in person at a bank branch. He asked if Chase had reviewed the security footage from the branches where the withdrawals were taking place.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I kept asking them if they've ever looked at the video footage because in that bank, every inch is covered by a camera.
But you know what? Chase declined to give him the footage unless Irvin got a court subpoena. So no refund, no access to the footage, and no protection for the customer who had just been robbed. Irvin and his wife filed a police report. They followed all the steps they were supposed to, but as of now, they're still out nearly $6,000 with no help from their bank. And then this next victim had $5,000 vanish after a parking lot confrontation. So Sarah had just stopped by her local Ralph's grocery store in Van Nuys, California on April 16th, and she was just running a quick errand like any other day. But what happened that afternoon would leave her and her daughter in financial devastation and expose just how vulnerable even a routine shopping trip can be. So as Sarah approached the checkout line to pay for her groceries, she pulled out her debit card and began entering her PIN number. And that's when a man appeared beside her, uncomfortably close, by the way, and held out a folded $20 bill.
Your lucky day. You're so lucky. You're full of luck. It's your lucky day.
And Sarah was confused. She hadn't dropped anything, but the man insisted, pushing a $20 bill toward her. She kept refusing, telling him it wasn't hers. But as she tried to finish her transaction, the man moved in closer, so close that he began physically pressing the bill into her wallet, violating her personal space. She said, "You need to back up," and she was disturbed by how aggressively he was forcing the interaction. It felt intrusive and creepy. Now, as she was trying to shake off the uncomfortable encounter, Sarah made her way to her car at this point. But just seconds later, she realized she was being followed. Now the man was joined by a woman this time, and together they confronted Sarah again in the parking lot. They were doubling down on the same pressure, continuing to insist she take the money. She said they kept invading her space, and she said, I just knew something was off because all I had on me at the time was a couple of dollars. Eventually, Sarah left annoyed, but still unaware of what had just happened. As she was driving away, she couldn't shake the feeling that something just was wrong with this moment. She pulled over and checked her wallet, and her debit card was gone. She said, my heart sank. Within just half an hour, the consequences hit. Multiple large withdrawals had already been made from her Chase account at nearby bank branches. But that wasn't even the end of it, because Sarah's checking account was linked to her daughter Jennifer's, and the thieves drained them both for nearly $5,000 in total. And it was Jennifer, Sarah's daughter, who worked as a school teacher. She said, my money is gone and I had just gotten paid. I don't make a lot of money, and what I earn goes to what I need, and now we can't even cover that. So she went on to file a police report and shared their story online, hoping to warn others. But what she didn't expect was just how many people would relate. So many people started replying that it happened to them or their mom or their grandma. It was terrifying. And despite reporting the crime to both the police and the bank, Sarah and Jennifer were met with silence. Chase offered no reimbursement, no answers, and no accountability. Their savings were simply gone, and no one was stepping in to help. So with all that being said, let's talk about how this scam actually works. And this isn't just some petty con. The police now say this scam is part of an organized crime ring, likely tied to Romanian theft networks operating inside the U.S. and then funneling that stolen money overseas. Police believe that the group has hit victims across Florida, California, Texas, and a few more states. So here's how it works. Step one, they pick their target inside the store. These scammers don't act randomly, they're actually watching you. They follow victims, typically elderly, into big box stores like grocery chains like Ralph's, Albertsons, Whole Foods, or Publix. And they usually work in pairs, often a man and a woman. One stands behind you in the checkout line, appearing casual and innocent, but really they're watching you punch in your PIN number on the card machine. Then they memorize your 4-digit code without you even realizing it. They don't need your password. They just need your card and that PIN number. And then step two, they follow you into the parking lot. So as you exit the store, that's where really the scam begins. One scammer, usually the man, approaches you with a folded $20 bill claiming that you dropped it. He'll say something like, hey, you dropped this $20 bill. It's your lucky day. And then while you're distracted and confused, he'll move in close, often trying to physically press the bill into your wallet or your purse. And as you're dealing with him, the second scammer, usually a woman, joins in and adds more pressure to the situation. And victims report that both scammers invade their personal space, making it hard to walk away or think clearly. And then step three, they go in for that wallet grab or card swap. So the scammers are extremely skilled in sleight of hand. So while you're dealing with the $20 bill distraction, one of them will reach into your purse or wallet, or even swap in your real debit card with a dummy card or even another card that they've already stolen. In multiple confirmed cases, victims never even felt the card being taken. And police say that in one case caught on surveillance, the scammer reached directly into a woman's open wallet while pretending to help her put the $20 bill away. And then step four, they hit the bank immediately. So once they have your card and your PIN number, the clock starts ticking from there. So within minutes, they're already at nearby ATMs or bank branches. And in one case, they withdrew nearly $6,000 from a victim's account. And here's something I didn't even know. They may also use bank tellers. I thought this was, just impossible. So shockingly, some banks don't even ask for photo ID, even for large withdrawals. And what most people don't realize is that banks allow different withdrawal limits depending on where you access your money. So like something like a standalone ATM, like those at gas stations or convenience stores, usually have lower limits, often around $200 to $400 a day. But branch-attached ATMs typically allow higher withdrawals, so sometimes up to $1,500 a day. But the highest limits of all come from in-person teller transactions, where scammers can walk away with $5,000 or more in a single visit, especially if no ID is requested and the correct PIN number is entered. And surveillance footage from multiple states shows them hitting up multiple Chase Bank branches in rapid succession, withdrawing as much as they can before the victim even realizes that the card is gone. And then step five, they blend in and just disappear. So police say that the suspects in these scams often dress in coordinated outfits. So they frequently have thick beards and hats to disguise their appearance and make identification harder. And then they work in teams, each targeting different stores in a single region. They're likely sending the stolen money back to Europe, based on their connections to the Romanian theft networks. And one suspect arrested in Florida was linked to crimes in multiple states and had an active criminal history in Europe. Now, you might assume that if someone steals your debit card and then drains your bank account, your bank will rush in to fix it, right? But that's not really how the law works as it stands today. Under federal law, banks are required to protect consumers only in specific cases, and most of these protections fall under Regulation E of the Electronic Fund Transfer Act or Regulation Z of the Truth in Lending Act for credit cards. But here's the loophole. If your debit card was used with the correct PIN number, banks can legally call it an authorized transaction. So even if your card was stolen, you were deceived or tricked, or you didn't even realize the transaction was happening, the bank's logic is simple, but it's brutal. You gave out your PIN number, so you technically authorized the transaction. And that's why wire transfers and PIN-based ATM withdrawals and teller cash outs often are covered, even when they're clearly linked to scams. And here's why it takes so long to get your money back, even if you were scammed. So under Regulation E, banks have up to 10 business days to investigate a fraud claim, and that can be extended to 45 days in some cases. Now, if they can't resolve the claim in 10 days, they can issue a provisional credit, but only if they choose to. And some banks delay assigning a fraud case manager or requesting footage, and that just slows the process even further. So they're not actually violating the law, they're just using the full timeline allowed and most likely to discourage victims from pushing back. So let's talk about how you can actually protect yourself. These scammers are good and they move fast. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're not targeting people who are careless. They're targeting normal, cautious people who are just running errands or picking up groceries. So here's how to stay one step ahead and make sure you're never the next victim. First, you always want to just cover up your PIN number, even if you're at self-checkout. I know it sounds basic, but it could save you thousands. So whether you're at the grocery store or a gas pump, someone could be standing behind you, memorizing your PIN number, just like they did to the victims in these scams. So covering that keypad with your hand every single time should be second nature, and just like wearing a seatbelt. Then don't let anyone get close to you, just anywhere. If someone approaches you with a story or a question, or even you drop this $20 line, that's your red flag to create some distance immediately. You don't owe strangers your time or attention, so just keep walking and protect your space. These scammers really use kindness and confusion as a weapon, so don't give them a window. And then always check your card after any strange encounter. So let's say that someone got close to you. Maybe they bumped into you. Maybe they handed you something. The moment you create some distance, stop and just check your wallet. Then one extra second you take could be the thing that saves your account from being drained before you even make it home. And then you also want to turn alerts on for ATM withdrawals. Most banks actually let you set real-time text or email alerts for large cash withdrawals. So if someone tries to pull out hundreds of dollars, you're going to know instantly. It's a simple layer of protection that can buy you the precious time you need to call your bank and freeze the accounts. And I would say also use tap to pay when you can. Many debit cards now come with NFC or tap to pay functionality, and in most cases, you can skip entering your PIN entirely. That means that no one standing behind you can steal it because you never typed it in. You can actually call up your bank and request them to lower your daily ATM withdrawal limit, and some people set it as low as $300 or $500. That way, even if someone did get your card PIN number, the most they can take is a fraction of your balance. You can also try asking for a high security flag on your account. Now, this is something that you actually have to request manually, but it can be worth it. So you can call your bank and ask them to add this restriction to your profile that kind of says, no teller withdrawals unless the account holder is physically present with an ID and a verbal password. This is especially important for seniors or anyone who wants peace of mind. You can also use credit cards over debit cards. And here's really the harsh truth. When someone steals money from your debit card, they're stealing your money. But if they steal it from your credit card, they're stealing the bank's money. And trust me, the bank will fight a lot harder to get that money back. Credit cards also come with stronger built-in fraud protections and fewer delays and disputes. A lot of credit card companies will give you the credit back the instant you file a dispute. So if you're able to, use a credit card for everyday purchases and keep your debit card for bank runs or emergencies only. You can also monitor every account down to $1 with Aura. I've been using Aura for over 2 years now, and it's hands down one of the best tools to catch fraud before it spirals out of control. Aura can monitor all of your bank accounts and credit card accounts, not just one card, and it sends real-time alerts for every transaction, even as small as $1. That means if a scammer tries to test your account with a tiny charge before going bigger, you'll know immediately and can shut it down fast. It also gives you credit monitoring, password protection, antivirus, and dark web scans, all in one app. Plus, if anything goes wrong, you get 24/7 US-based fraud support and step-by-step help. You can even try for free for 14 days. Just hit that link below, definitely hit it below, and get you covered. But listen, what if you've already been targeted? So first of all, you just want to take a deep breath, okay? If this happened to you, you're not stupid, you're not alone, and you're definitely not the only one. But now is the time to act fast. So step one, you want to call your bank immediately. The moment you realize your debit card is going or that something feels off, call your bank and report it stolen. Ask them to freeze your account, disable your card, and then flag your account for fraud. And if you're lucky, the scammers haven't drained everything yet, and you might be able to stop more damage from being done. And then step two, you want to file that police report. Even if your bank refuses to help, file that police report anyway. What it does is give you proof of the crime, a record for your case, and something that you can reference if you have to take things even further with your bank or your lawyer. You really don't want to skip this step because it's one of the few ways to start pushing back. And then step three, you want to report to even higher authorities. So here's what most victims don't know yet. There are actually official agencies that track and investigate scams like this, but they rely on people like you to file reports. And by reporting what happened, you're not just speaking up for yourself, you're actually helping build the case against organized fraud rings and pushing for stronger consumer protections nationwide. So here's where you can report. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, or IC3. This is really for organized fraud, stolen debit card data, and crimes that cross state or national lines. You can also report to the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC. This is going to help flag national scam trends and create pressure for broader regulations. You can also report to your state's banking regulator. And so here in North Carolina, where I'm at, it's the Office of Commissioner of Banks. And that's where you can file and complain if your bank mishandled your fraud claim or refused to investigate or just failed to follow proper withdrawal protocols. So if you're not in North Carolina like me, you can just Google your state and the Department of Financial Institutions or Banking Commissioner to find your state's regulator and then file a complaint directly. The more reports that they get, the harder it is for banks and law enforcement to keep ignoring the problem. But I want you to be honest. Do you actually think you would fall for this? You know, in both of these stories, the scammers had to do two things. They had to watch the victim enter their PIN number over their shoulder, and then they had to get close enough to physically steal their debit card. And in both cases, it worked with very little resistance. So I guess here's the real question. Were these victims just too trusting? Did they let it happen? Or is this something anyone could fall for in the right moment or circumstance? Let me know down below in the comment section. I want to know how you feel about this. Either way, I wish this was all you needed to know to protect yourself from scams, but unfortunately, that's not true. Scammers are out here working overtime, coming up with new ways to drain people's bank accounts, every single month. And that's exactly why I put together a playlist with all the biggest bank scams you need to know about. We're talking sneaky phone scams, shady credit card tricks, and even scams that banks don't want to warn you about. So don't wait until it's too late. Check out the playlist right here, right now, and stay one step ahead of the scammers. Thank you for watching.